Alrighty, everybody. We are back today with another Dank Talks. It is me, your host, Dank, Coffee God, and today we're going to be talking about my favorite sport. A lot of people might be thinking it's probably basketball or football, but no. Actually, it is skateboarding. Probably one of the most deadly sports that you can choose. And all of the stories today that I'm going to be talking about are my experiences with skateboarding. So a little bit of backstory. I got into skateboarding because of my little brother. He was really into logboarding and just being on skateboards. And my older brother was super into skateboarding too. He was all about doing tricks all the time, going to the skate parks, having fun like that. And, I always wanted to be a part of the crew, the gang of guys. So I wanted to skateboard with them. And so I'd always skateboard, but I am really uncoordinated. Like, my coordination is probably a 2 out of 10 in any given scenario. So it's safe to say that I busted ass a lot. And I have quite a few injuries and scars on my body still because of the times that I've busted ass skateboarding. So this is a kind of entertainment, but at the same time, this is a warning story to all of you who might also really enjoy skateboarding. So let's dive into the first scenario. The first scenario, I'm about 13, 14 years old, and in this neighborhood that I lived in, there was this huge hill. Like, we're talking, oh my gosh, probably like a 45-degree angle, maybe even more. It was just absolutely massive and super steep. And one day, my older stepbrother asked me if I wanted to go skateboarding with him. And I was like, alright, that sounds like a good time, let's go. So he takes me over to the giant hill, and this kid instantly just jumps on his board and just bombs the entire hill. And he comes out in this beautiful arc right at the end, because it was in a cul-de-sac with a sewage drain at the back. So he comes into this beautiful arc right at the end, and he comes out of it, and I'm like, screw it, I'm not walking down the hill. If he can do that, I can do it too. So I throw my skateboard down, and I get on it, and I get about halfway down the hill. And after I get about halfway, I start getting speed wobbles, which those in the know that when you're going really fast, your skateboard will start to wobble on you. Those are called the speed wobbles. And so I started getting speed wobbles, and I think to myself, okay, this isn't going to end good. And I decided not to bail on the board, which I definitely should have at that point. But I was like, the skateboard was going to go into the sewage drain. And I was borrowing the skateboard from my stepsister, who probably would have beat me up if I had lost her skateboard down a sewage drain ditch. So I stay on the board, and I get right to the intersection to where the cul-de-sac starts and where the road ends. And I start to go out, take a right to go out and go around, make an arc like my older brother did. But the skateboard decides to get caught on a rock or something, and it flings me off the back. And I'm saying, like, flings me off the back. I go flying through the air, and there's this moment where my stepbrother, he locks eyes with me as I'm flying through the air. And we both kind of know that this isn't going to be good as soon as I land. But I land, big splat on the ground, slide a couple inches, maybe even a foot across the pavement. And I'm laying there for a second, and I'm like dazed and confused. And I just don't even get up. I'm just looking at the sky because it's like, wow, what the heck just happened to me? And eventually he comes over, and he tries to help me up, but I look at my palm, and my entire palm of my right hand is completely gone. Like, it's all just blood and little bits of rock and debris in it. And I get up, and my right arm, right where my elbow is on the inside of my arm, where my forearm is at the very base of it, there was this huge road rash. And inside of it, whenever I moved my arm, you could actually see a part of my tendon moving and stretching anytime I moved my arm. So I had my palm, I had my right forearm, and then I had a bunch of hip stuff as well. I got some road rash on my hip and on one of my knees. So I go and I get up, and he kind of helps me up, and we go and we walk up the hill, which was honestly the worst part. We're both dripping sweat because it's super humid here where we live. And we get up the hill, he takes me inside, and I'm still just dripping blood everywhere, keep in mind. And I decide to go take a shower directly afterwards, because I'm like, I have a ton of open wounds. I definitely have to go and get these all cleaned. I might as well take a shower. Terrible idea. If you ever have road rash all over your body, do not take a shower. Clean that stuff out by hand. Do not take a shower like I did. Because as soon as I jumped in the water, it was instant burning everywhere. Everywhere. All the parts of my body that were open were just on fire. It was ridiculous. So eventually what happened was I had about a month where I had to, at school, write with my left hand instead of my right hand, which is usually my dominant hand for writing. So that was definitely great. But altogether, it really wasn't that bad of an experience. It hurt really bad at first, but compared to what I'm about to talk about, it really wasn't all that bad. So that was the first story of me enjoying my favorite sport. Our second story begins a little bit more recently. This is pretty much about like a month or two right before the lockdowns in 2020. And I decided to go skateboarding with a bunch of my friends, and at this point, we were really into longboarding and going and racing our longboards. So we go to this park that's known for having some, like, not necessarily steep hills, but winding hills to go and race on. And we spend a couple hours with me and the boys, and we're all on our longboards, and we're racing around, dodging and weaving through people, you know, all the things that you definitely shouldn't be doing when skateboarding. Anyways, what eventually happens is we decide to go down this one hill, and I had won most of the races this day, or so I recall, at least in my memory, and I was feeling kind of cocky at this point, and everybody kind of went first, and I decided to go last, thinking I was going to catch up, and so I start diving down this hill. We're talking Mach 5, man. Wind is in my face, I can feel the rush of adrenaline. And right as I'm about to get to this corner that it lets out at, and it kind of you slow down a little bit, a family comes walking around the corner. And me being the good person that doesn't want to hit other people while they're enjoying their day at the park, I decide to swerve out of the way. Well, that was the wrong decision, because again, my board decided to launch me off of it at Mach 5 onto the pavement, and instead of landing on my back and kind of sliding a little bit, I hit face first. Face first. I took the full blunt of that speed and all of that right on my face. And I kind of laid there for a second. Again, just like the last story, I kind of sat there in shock that, number one, I was still alive. I was genuinely surprised because of how hard I was hit. And number two, not wanting to get up because then I realized that once I got up, that's when it would all start hurting. That's when the blood would start pouring out, and that's when I would be worried. I finally get up, and shame to the people that were around me and saw that happen, that didn't actually kind of come over and see if I was okay. A lot of people kept walking, and that's kind of a bad thing. But anyways, I get up, and my friends are long gone down the thing. They thought I was still behind them, so I just grab my board and I start walking. But there is blood pouring all out of my face, all over the place. And I was a little freaked out, so I just took my shirt and I put it to my face. And then my friends finally catch up to me like, "Yo, dude, what's wrong? What's up? Where you at?" And then I take my hand off my face, and they're all like, "Oh, no." So I knew it was bad, judging by their reaction. Anyways, I go to the bathroom and I look, and right under my right eye, I have this huge gash that you can like see parts of my muscle under. My cheek, like around where my lips are on the right side of my cheek, was all gone. It was completely gone, just with road rash. I obviously had hand injuries. I had a giant injury on my, again, right forearm, but this time on my elbow, and it went up my forearm quite a bit. I had injuries on my shoulder, on my left hip instead of my right hip this time, and both of my knees were yet again destroyed. So through this, I definitely got a concussion, although I never went to the doctor to get it like looked at, but I knew that I had a concussion because of how hard I hit the ground. But I decided to drive home anyways. I got in my car and I drove home, and I told my roommates that were there, I was like, hey, get some Advil ready and some bandages. I'm gonna need some help cleaning all this up. And I get home and they are absolutely astonished by how I look. They're like, dude, you look like you just did 3 rounds in a ring or something like that. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And they say that I gotta sit there and watch some movies with them for a while I kind of just heal a little bit, because if I did get a concussion, you're not supposed to go to sleep directly afterwards, because you might never wake up, which is kind of a weird thing. I didn't know that. So I sat with them, and I had a beer and a couple of ibuprofens, and just hung out. And I was out of work for about 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks, I couldn't bend my arm more than a 90-degree angle because of all the scabbing and scars that were all over it. Because I was afraid to move it, I would destroy my scabs and then have worse scars. And a giant bruise appeared on my forehead right above my right eye, and it didn't go down for about 2 weeks. And not just that, but I had these huge scars and all these crazy scabbings all over my face, underneath my eye, on my hips, on my knees. Everything was absolutely completely destroyed. So, with all of that being said, I would like to wrap this all up by saying I really like skateboarding, honestly. And you'd be surprised. You'd think I'd have some sort of PTSD after all of that. But no. Skateboarding is still probably one of the coolest sports in my opinion. It's definitely noteworthy and deserves a lot of praise. And to anybody that is interested in skateboarding, definitely learn from my mistakes and wear helmets and don't go too fast. Enjoy yourself, do what you feel comfortable with, but don't push yourself any farther than you know you can actually physically handle. Always be realistic with it. But other than that, I want to thank you guys all so much for watching. You all have a great rest of your day. This is Dank Coffee God signing off.